It's 11:47 on a Tuesday night, and the Level B2 parking garage is slick with rain. Doctor. Adaiza Harmon feels the on-call page light up inside her coat pocket before she hears the chime. A weight, and then a glow, cold through the fabric. She's been 30 seconds away from the hospital for the past 4 minutes. The elevator bank reads out of service on all 5 vehicles. Digital lettering that hasn't changed in 3 days. She pivots towards a concrete stairwell, her orthopedic clogs already soaked from the lot, when headlights cut across the asphalt behind her and sweep the support pillar she's walking past. A Eastfield police cruiser, spotlight trained forward. The cruiser rolls across the lane toward her, slow and deliberate, the way it moves when the driver has already decided something about what he's looking at. Officer Brett Calloway does not call out. He stops the cruiser perpendicular to her path, opens the door, and steps into the rain with his right hand on his belt. He is 33, with the kind of chest that uniform suppliers build in 2 sizes now, to accommodate the amount of gear Eastfield officers carry. His name is stitched in white thread on a solid black rectangle of nylon. EPD 1147 on the badge below it. "Step over here," he says. Not a request, not a hello. He's got her stopped between the support pillar and a silver Honda Accord with hospital plates, the kind of staging that looks deliberate once you're inside it. "Doctor?" Harmon stops. She does not turn with the reflex most people have, the instinct that says authority has spoken and compliance is the first word of your response. She is 42, Nigerian American, born to a father who was a master sergeant at Fort Bragg for 32 years and who taught her across a kitchen table when she was 8 that hands ready and head steady were not metaphors but instructions. She turns to face Calloway, and her voice, when it comes, does not climb. It does not accelerate. "I'm hospital staff," she says. "Dr. Adaiza Harmon. I work in the trauma department. I have my badge." The on-call page is still glowing in her pocket. She can feel the weight of it like a question being asked. She does not look down at it. Her hands are in plain sight, palms open, nothing in them. "Hands on the pillar," Calloway says. His commands have a pattern to them, each one a closed loop, no room for a question, no room for context to wedge itself in. She moves to the pillar. The concrete is cold and wet, the texture of it slightly rough, the kind of surface that collects water in the joints. She places her palms against it at shoulder height. "Don't move," he says. He approaches her from the side, the way officers do, the approach that keeps the suspect's eyes from tracking his hands. She can feel him there, 30 seconds of his weight, the sound of his uniform, all the canvas and metal and equipment that comes with him. She is not fighting. She is not raising her voice. She has not moved. She has done nothing to invite this, except to exist in a parking garage at the same moment he decided she should not be there. Her hospital ID is on a lanyard, tucked inside her coat collar so it won't swing when she's moving between patients, so it won't catch on anything sterile. The badge itself, white laminate. Her photograph, a hologram overlay that catches light, is secured with a hospital-grade clip that doesn't come loose. She reaches her right hand down and to the left, a quarter motion toward the lanyard. It's the automatic reach that says, "Here's my credential." It's the motion of belonging, of identification, of authority earned through 9 years at Eastfield and residency at Johns Hopkins before that, and a year as a trauma fellow embedded with a forward surgical team in Afghanistan. Calloway's hand comes down on her wrist and forces it back against the pillar. His grip doesn't twist. It presses. Controlled pressure. The message written in physics rather than pain. The message is about cessation of motion, about what happens when you move without permission. "Doctor," she says, a word that comes out level, The way she speaks to anesthesiologists in the OR when they need to hear that she has made a decision. I'm trying to show you my identification. I'm an attending physician here. I've been on staff for 9 years. I'm on call tonight. I didn't ask for your life story, Calloway says. He has moved position. She can feel it by the angle of his voice now, 45 degrees higher, coming from her right side. The radio static on his shoulder giving off a thin, electric hum. Keep your hands on the wall. That's an order. She keeps them there. The rain is cold on the exposed skin of her neck. One hand is still pressed against the wet concrete. The other has only just been released. She waits. He's circling her now, the way you circle something you're trying to understand or trying to establish dominance over. The distinction isn't always clear from inside the circle. She's motionless. Her breathing is steady. She was trained in that discipline. She has maintained it through 14-hour surgeries and patients who didn't make it, and code blues at 3 a.m, and the kind of cumulative exhaustion that is heavy enough to have a color. I have my badge inside my coat, she says, her voice the same as it was before, level, controlled, the voice of someone giving information rather than asking for something. I'm Dr. Daisy Harmon. I'm on the trauma faculty here. If you check my ID, you'll see that I work in this building. I have patients admitted tonight. I need to be inside. She reaches again. This time, she's more deliberate about it, trying to establish context with her body, trying to explain something through proximity to her credential, instead of through language that's clearly not landing with him. Her left hand moves the same quarter motion, toward the lanyard, toward the badge that says who she is and where she belongs and how long she has belonged there. His hand comes down again. Same wrist, same force, same message. This is not negotiation. This is the installation of a fact. She goes still. Her hands return to the pillar. The rain is running down her face now. Or maybe it's sweat. She can't separate the two once they mix. And it doesn't matter. Her on-call page is still in her pocket. She's not looking at it. Calloway is talking into his radio, his voice modulating into the particular cadence officers use to describe a situation that is already decided in their language before it has been decided by the facts. 10:15, he's saying. Level B, north structure. Possible trespassing. Female, has hospital identification, she claims. Claims. The word sits in the garage like something physical, something that has weight. Priya Anand is 40 feet away, standing in the level B2 east stairwell door with a cold cup of coffee and a phone in her hand. She's a level 2 trauma nurse, 29, Indian American, and she came down to the garage 15 minutes ago because the vending machine on level B1 actually worked and the level B2 machine has been eating cards since noon. She's seen Dr. Harmon around the department for 2 years. She knows her face. She knows her voice in the ER. The specific pitch she uses when she's telling someone they're going into surgery now. Not in 10 minutes. Now. She does not know yet that what she's about to witness will require her to decide between staying silent and raising her phone. She hears Dr. Harmon's voice, even and controlled, asking for permission to identify herself. She hears Officer Calloway's response, not permission, not engagement, but the shortening of his words into commands that do not invite answers. Priya raises her phone to waist height. She does not approach. She does not call out. She does not lower her phone. The camera app is open and running. 6 minutes and 44 seconds of footage will come from this decision. From this moment of deciding not to look away, Calloway has pulled his citation pad from his belt. He's writing something. Doctor. Harmon is watching the pillar, the wet concrete, the way the light from the garage floods catch the grain of it. If she lets her eyes track sideways, she can see Calloway's reflection in the sheen of water on the pavement, the shape of him, the angle of his writing arm, the fact that he has entered official mode now. Documentation mode. "Officer Calloway," she says, and her voice, even now, is not climbing, is not breaking, is using his name like she is speaking to someone, like this is a conversation instead of a command sequence being executed. "I work here. My badge is in my coat. I have a patient I need to attend to. If you would allow me to show you my identification, you can verify that I'm staff here. You can verify my credentials." "You work here, huh?" Calloway's voice has taken on a specific texture now. It's shortened. The commands are getting smaller, tighter, the way a fighter's combinations get faster as he starts to feel that his opponent is not falling, is not breaking, is maintaining some kind of composure that he reads as defiance. "Hands on the wall. That's 3 times I'm going to say this. You don't hear it again. You hear me?" She hears him. The Level B2 garage has a fixed security camera mounted on the eastern edge of the structure. Its angle covering the section of pavement that includes the support pillar and a radius of 45 feet in all directions. The camera runs continuously. It does not have a blind spot. It is recording everything it can see. Calloway's body cam is also recording. It's mounted on his chest, recording from an angle that captures his perspective, her back against the pillar, her hands visible, the concrete behind her. But the body cam is not capturing the moment his hand comes down on her wrist the first time. That moment is in the angle of her body, in the space between them, in the physics of her arm being pressed backward, but his chest fills the frame. His body eclipses her hands. And the body cam is not capturing the second moment his hand comes down either, because the camera's view has shifted with him, the way equipment shifts when a person turns their body in space, the way perspective is limited by the position of the observer. But Priya's phone, held waist level, camera running, recording the garage from 37 feet back. Priya's phone captures both moments. It captures the first reach for the badge, his hand coming down, her hand being forced back. It captures her voice, even and controlled, asking for permission to identify herself. It captures the second reach, the second pressure, the moment her hand stops moving and does not reach again. Calloway is reading her something from the citation pad. It's the text of a code violation. She's not listening to the words. She's listening to the fact that he's reading it at all, which means he's writing a citation. Which means something has tipped from a parking lot interaction into an official record. She has been in the garage for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. A patient is preparing for emergency surgery on a timeline that does not pause. There is only one attending trauma surgeon on call at Eastfield University Hospital on Tuesday nights. "I need to be inside." "Doctor," Harmon says, not a plea, a statement of necessity. "I'm on call. I have a trauma admission. If you verify my credentials through the hospital, if you call upstairs..." "Turn around," Calloway says. She turns. She faces him now. Rain is falling on both of them. The garage is 11 stories of concrete and fluorescent light, and it sounds hollow, and it smells like oil and wet asphalt, and the particular staleness of air that's been recirculated too many times. She is a trauma surgeon in the hospital that's 80 feet and 1 floor above them. She is also a woman who has been ordered onto a concrete wall twice, told not to move, and told that her credential is something she claims. The imbalance is not abstract. It is written in the space between them. It is written in the fact that he has not listened to her voice, has not checked her badge, has not made a call. "Put your hands behind your back," Calloway says. She hears the click of handcuffs before she feels them. The metal is cold. The ratcheting is precise. He's done this before. The motion is economical. The pressure is calibrated to restraint rather than pain. The way he cinches the bracelet on her left wrist tells her he knows how tight is secure, but not damage. She is being placed under arrest. She is an attending physician being arrested in the parking garage of the hospital where she works, 340 feet from OR 3, where a patient is being prepped for emergency surgery that she is supposed to be present for. She is 42 years old, Nigerian American, a Johns Hopkins residency graduate, a woman her father trained in stillness across a Fort Bragg kitchen when she was 8. She does not resist. She does not shout. She does not ask why again. Calloway is talking into his radio. 10:15 in custody, he's saying. Non-compliant female, claims to work at the hospital, requesting transport. The distance from the support pillar to the sealed entrance of OR 3 is 340 feet. It has been measured. It will be documented. It will be referenced in federal testimony. Calloway has placed Dr. Harmon exactly here, at the pillar, in the rain, with her hands behind her back, while a patient she has not yet seen is being prepped for surgery on a timeline that does not pause and does not negotiate. Priya is still recording. 6 minutes into the footage, she has not lowered her phone. Calloway has not noticed her. No one has told her to stop. The camera is running. And what it is capturing will later become the evidence that Calloway's body cam is not. Marcus Webb arrives at Eastfield University Hospital's emergency department at 11:31 on Tuesday night with a ruptured spleen and a blood pressure of 70/40. He doesn't know it's ruptured yet. He knows he can't breathe right, that something inside him is filling with the wrong fluid, that the pallet of industrial shelving fell 3 stories and caught him across the abdomen at Ridgeline Logistics, where he has worked as a forklift operator for 5 years. The ER team is moving fast now. IV lines, type, and cross. The rapid ultrasound probe moving across his abdomen while a resident in blue scrubs is already on the phone calling upstairs. The trauma page has gone out. The attending trauma surgeon is on call. She will be called. The question is whether she will arrive. Doctor. Daisy Harmon has been on call at Eastfield for 9 years. 9 years of nights like this one. When the pager goes off and the clock starts ticking against a patient's physiology, 9 years of pages that came at dinner time and at 3 in the morning, and at the moment she had decided to leave the hospital parking lot because the shift had officially ended. 9 years means she knows the layout of every operating room, the calibration of the surgical lights, the names of the anesthesiologists who work nights, the specific hand position required on the C-clamp that controls the aorta, the exact sequence of who needs to know what before she steps into the OR and the doors close behind her. 9 years at Eastfield means she has seen 340 feet of distance from the Level B parking garage to the sealed entrance of OR 3, traveled thousands of times, in daylight and in rain, in her mind when she's at home, and in real time when she's been called in. That distance is the distance between where she is and where her patient is. Before Eastfield, there was Johns Hopkins, a 5-year residency where she learned to move fast in trauma, where she learned that composure under pressure is not a personality trait, but a skill that can be drilled into the nervous system the way a pianist drills scales until the motion becomes something deeper than thought. The attending physicians at Hopkins were brutally precise. They taught by demonstration and by consequence. There was no room for second opinions because there was no time for second opinions. They taught her that hesitation in a trauma case is a form of decision-making. It is the decision to let the patient die slightly slower. They taught her that the only acceptable speed was the speed that gave the patient the best chance, and anything slower than that was negligence. She was in a teaching hospital, which meant that sometimes her hands were being guided by an attending's hands placed over her own. The pressure adjusted in real time. It meant learning what it felt like when your movements were being corrected before you knew they were wrong. After Hopkins came Bagram, a year embedded with a forward surgical team in Afghanistan, stationed at a base that treated combat casualties from both friendly and hostile forces. Bagram meant a different kind of clock, a different kind of pressure. The OR was sometimes a structure made of concrete and blast barriers. Sometimes it was the back of a Humvee with the rotors of a helicopter landing outside and the sound so loud that she had to feel the anesthesiologist's hand on her shoulder instead of hearing him speak. Bagram meant learning to work in conditions where the blood pressure was harder to hear, where the morphine supply was a negotiation with logistics, where the patient in front of her was sometimes 19 years old and sometimes was a stranger whose name she would never know. Bagram meant learning that she could keep working when she was terrified, when the equipment failed, when the casualty coming in was already on its way, and there was no time to prepare the room or herself. It meant learning that composure is not about being unaffected. It is about being affected and choosing not to show it while you are doing what needs to be done. It is about letting the fear move through you like a current and not letting it move your hands. Before any of that, before Johns Hopkins, before the military base in the Hindu Kush, before Eastfield University Hospital, there was a kitchen table at Fort Bragg. Her father, James Harmon, was a master sergeant in the United States Army, 32 years of service, stationed at Fort Bragg. And he had raised his daughter with the specific discipline of military households, not rigid, specific. The difference is important. He taught her that composure is not about being cold. It is about being warm and human and frightened, and choosing not to show it because the people around you need you to be steady. When she was 8 years old, her father sat her at the kitchen table in their Fort Bragg house, and he said, "Hands ready, head steady," not as a philosophy, as an instruction, as something she would need. He repeated it when she told him she wanted to be a surgeon. He said it in a letter when she started her residency at Hopkins, and she had read it in a call room at 3 a.m. after a patient had died. He said it when she called him from Afghanistan and told him that one of her patients, a 19-year-old interpreter, had not survived the injuries. And she was the one who had to tell his family. At 11:47 on Tuesday night, Dr. Harmon's on-call pager lights up. The message is delivered in the flat syntax of the ER. Trauma activation, ruptured spleen, hemorrhagic shock, ETA to OR 13 minutes. She is in her car in the hospital parking lot. She has been sitting there for 4 minutes, waiting for the rain to let up enough to make the walk to the entrance less soaked. And now she will not wait. She is moving toward the concrete stairwell in the Level B parking garage, and the sound of Officer Brett Calloway's cruiser is already rolling toward her. The rain is cold on her face. She is moving faster now. The clock is at 11:48. 13 minutes since Marcus Webb arrived. 14 minutes until the physiological window for optimal surgical intervention begins to close. The attending surgeon who is responsible for keeping that window open is about to be pressed against a concrete pillar with her hands cuffed behind her back. She reaches for her badge lanyard a first time. His hand comes down on her wrist. She tells him, "I work here. I'm on call. I'm an attending surgeon in the trauma department." The pressure increases. The message is clear. She does not reach again. Her hands go back to the wall. Her breathing stays steady. She has done this before. The part where fear is a physical thing happening inside her body, and she does not allow it to move her hands or change the register of her voice. She has done this in the OR at Bagram when the power went out. She has done this in the ER at Hopkins when a patient coded and the attending was not in the room and the decision to act fell to her. She has done this in her kitchen at 2 in the morning when the phone call came from her mother. The memory does not arrive as words. It arrives as a waiting room, cold and lit by overhead fluorescent panels that buzz slightly. The kind of light that drains the color from everything. It arrives as a clipboard with a name on it. Her brother's name, Darius, 19 years old, pre-med student at Westlake Community College. It arrives as the knowing that he had gone to the ER with pain, that his number had been called but he had not responded, that by the time a nurse had gone to find him, his appendix had ruptured and the infection had already begun. It arrives as the fact that he had waited to be heard and his body had run out of time. It arrives as the knowledge that if she had been here, in Eastfield, instead of 8,000 miles away at Bagram, learning to save strangers, she could have known something was wrong before the waiting room could have failed him. She breathes through it. She comes back. She is on a concrete pillar. She is cuffed. It is 11:53, and the clock is ticking. A voice comes through the radio mounted on Calloway's shoulder, and it is coming from inside the hospital. Doctor's ETA? Another voice, faster this time, with an edge to it. No contact yet. Patient's BP is 58/30 and dropping. We need her now. She does not shout. She does not break. She does not do any of the things that would make Calloway feel he was right to stop her. That would confirm whatever he has decided about who she is and what she is doing in a hospital parking garage. Instead, she stands perfectly still against the pillar, and she lets the sound of a patient dying without her reach her ears. And she chooses not to move her hands or raise her voice or do anything except be steady. Hands ready, head steady. The only thing she can control is the only thing her father taught her mattered. The rain keeps falling. The clock keeps running. Somewhere inside the hospital, 234 feet away, on the other side of a sealed door, a trauma team is preparing an operating room that their surgeon cannot reach. Officer Brett Calloway has been on the Eastfield Police Department for 4 years. His personnel file is 7 inches thick, measured spine to spine, the kind of thickness that in a police department usually means either substantial commendations or substantial complaints. And in Calloway's case, it means both, stacked on top of each other like geological strata. The official record of a man who has been both praised and accused with equal regularity and equal institutional consequence. 7 complaints. The first came in 2021 from a delivery driver on Crescent Avenue. The complaint was filed as a curb detention complaint. The driver, a black male identified as T. Osei, alleged that Calloway had stopped him without cause, detained him for an extended period, and released him without charges or explanation. The dashcam footage backs up the allegation in its entirety. The footage shows Osei standing on the curb with his hands visible, the entire interaction frozen in the overhead angle that all patrol vehicles capture. The interaction lasts 7 minutes. The dashcam records all 7 minutes without interruption, but the body cam, the one mounted on Calloway's chest, the one that is supposed to provide his perspective of the encounter, records something different. It records 4 minutes and 11 seconds of interaction, and then it goes dark. The camera stops. The audio stops. The timestamp freezes at 4:11. When the camera comes back online, Osei is being told he is free to leave, and Calloway is walking back toward his car, and the 4 minutes and 11 seconds between the darkness and the return are simply gone. The gap was logged. The gap was reviewed. The gap was recorded in the internal affairs file with the notation, "Device malfunction during incident," the kind of neutral language that makes equipment failure sound like an act of God rather than an act of a man reaching up to his chest and deciding that what happened in those 4 minutes and 11 seconds did not need to be documented. The gap exists. The explanation for the gap exists. The consequence for the gap does not. The review memo was written by the union rep assigned to Calloway's case. The memo was 3 paragraphs long. The officer, the union rep stated, had exercised appropriate judgment under ambiguous circumstances. There was no evidence that would support discipline. The circumstances of the stop were not fully clear from the available evidence. No action was recommended. The file was closed. The case number was assigned to the inactive list. The memo was filed in Calloway's personnel jacket, where it would remain if anyone ever asked whether this officer had a history of complaints or if the department had ever reviewed his conduct. The answer would be yes to both questions. The answer to whether anything had changed would be no. Over the next 3 years, 6 more complaints arrived. Each one followed a similar pattern. A motorist pulled over on the hospital district border, the driver black, claiming Calloway had run his ID for an outstanding warrant that turned out not to exist. The stop lasting 12 minutes. Release without citation. A woman approached in a parking garage for matching a description of someone wanted in connection with a theft. She was detained for 17 minutes, while Calloway confirmed she was not the person he was looking for. A man stopped for jaywalking in the hospital district who alleged that Calloway had used a racial slur during the encounter. The complaint was filed, but the body cam for that incident was also corrupted. The audio portion unavailable for review. A teenager questioned about a bicycle match. The teenager's mother filing a complaint when her son reported being threatened with arrest for being smart. A patient leaving the hospital late at night stopped and questioned about why he was in the area at that hour. Detained for 23 minutes. Released without charges. A nursing student walking home from an evening shift. Approached and detained for matching a description of someone who had stolen from a parked car 4 blocks away. The match being that they were both black. Each complaint noted similar patterns. Extended detention. Questioning about business in the hospital district. Release without charges or citations. No explanation given upon release. Each complaint was reviewed. Each complaint was closed with the same language in the same memo format. Officer exercised appropriate judgment under ambiguous circumstances. No discipline recommended. Case closed. The institutional response to a pattern of complaints is either investigation or dismissal. Eastfield PD chose dismissal, not investigation, not retraining, not a notation in Calloway's permanent record that might shape future deployments or assignments. Dismissal. Each file closed. Each complaint filed away. Each complainant's name reduced to initials in the official record. The effect of closing them without action is not the same as finding them to be without merit. It is the same as saying they do not matter. Saying they do not matter is the same as saying that what happened in each case was permissible, acceptable, the kind of conduct that officers in good standing engage in. Calloway's personnel file also contained 2 commendations. The first, in 2022, was for proactive enforcement in the hospital district, a commendation that arrived in the same calendar year as 3 of the complaints. The second, in 2023, was for outstanding community policing, awarded for stops that the commendation form identified as part of his ongoing efforts to maintain order in his assigned sector. Both commendations used language that was formally distinct from the complaint language, but the actions being described were identical. Extended stops, questioning of people in the district, identification verification, community presence, proactive enforcement. The same conduct was being rewarded by the institution at the same time it was being complained about by the people it was being conducted on. The dual message was clear. This is the work we want you to do, and this is the work you should not face consequences for. The hospital district is not a geographic designation that appears on any official map of Eastfield. It is a sector of the city where Eastfield University Hospital, the Associated Medical School, and the downtown clinic network are concentrated within a 6-block radius. It is also a sector with significant foot traffic from medical staff leaving shifts at 11 at night and at 3 in the morning, from patients and their families arriving for emergency care or routine appointments, from delivery personnel making runs to supply rooms and pharmacy loading docks, from security contractors on their own rounds, from students, from anyone whose business in the city intersected with healthcare. Calloway's assignment to the hospital district sector was not unusual. Calloway's response to the assignment was, he took it as a territorial designation, not in the way a police officer takes an assignment, as a responsibility to serve the people in the area, but as an ownership. The district was his. The people in it were present in his district. They were there by permission. The permission was not explicit. It was implicit in his presence. He was the manager of movement through space. He was the authority that decided who belonged and who did not. When he decided you did not belong, you were stopped. When you asked why, you were questioned further. When you explained your presence, your explanation was weighed by him and found insufficient or sufficient based on criteria that existed only in his judgment. When you were found sufficient, you were released. When you were found insufficient, you were detained until he decided otherwise. This worldview was not hidden. It was documented in complaint after complaint. It was visible in the pattern of stops. It was audible in the interactions described by the people he stopped. It was present in the commendations that rewarded him for maintaining what the institution called order, and what the people being ordered called being stopped for no reason. Calloway believed the hospital district required active management, and he believed that he was the manager, and he believed that his authority to manage it was more legitimate than anyone's authority to question his management. When people questioned it, when they asked why they were being stopped, when they stated they had business in the area, when they provided identification that was legitimate, Calloway read the questioning as disrespect. He read the explanations as evasion or lies. He read the legitimacy as irrelevant. He was establishing a boundary, and the boundary was, you are in my district, and I decide who belongs and what business is acceptable. In 2024, 4 years into his tenure at Eastfield PD, Calloway is 33 years old. He has been suspended 0 times. He has been disciplined 0 times. He has never faced formal consequences for any of the 7 complaints in his personnel file. He has been commended twice for the same conduct that generated the complaints. His worldview has been validated by institutional silence. The absence of discipline is the same as endorsement. The institution's refusal to act is the same as the institution's agreement that he was right. The institution's reward of his conduct is the same as institutional instruction to continue. This is the gap between institutional record and institutional conduct. The record documents 7 complaints. The conduct produces 7 closures with no action. The gap is where Calloway lives. The gap is where he understands himself to be authorized to operate without fear of consequence. The gap is where he is standing on November 14th, 2024 in the Level B parking garage when he sees a woman walking toward the stairwell. She is black. She is moving with purpose. She is in his district. He does not know her. He does not know what business she has there. He decides, in the space between institutional record and institutional response, that she does not belong, and it is his responsibility to determine whether his decision is correct. The 2021 complaint against him from Crescent Avenue was never resolved. The body cam gap was never explained. The 4 minutes and 11 seconds where Calloway's perspective should have been documented remained dark. a blank space in the official record. In the absence of documentation, in the absence of consequence, the action was understood to be permissible. The driver was released. No charges were filed. No explanation was given. In 2024, 4 years later, Calloway will repeat the action. The gap will open again. The duration will be identical, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. And in the absence of previous consequence, and the institutional validation that had been offered through silence and commendations, Calloway will believe he is doing exactly what officers are supposed to do, what he had already done before, what he had been rewarded for doing. The clock is at 11:52. The clock is at 11:53. The clock is ticking forward in real time and in radio time and in the time it takes for blood to leak out of a ruptured organ at a rate that makes every second count. Doctor. Harmon is cuffed to the support pillar on level B2. Her hands are locked behind her back, the steel ratcheted tight enough to be inescapable, but calibrated to the precision of someone who has done this before. Her feet are planted on wet concrete. The rain is still falling. Officer Brett Calloway is standing 15 feet away from her, his radio held to his mouth, and he is calling in the arrest to dispatch. 10:15 in custody, he says. Non-compliant female, claims hospital affiliation, requesting transport unit to level B North Structure. 10:15 is the code for a suspect in custody. The phrase claims hospital affiliation is Calloway's translation of everything she has said. 9 years at Eastfield, trauma surgeon, on call, attending physician. I work here. Let me show you my badge. The words have been converted into claims. The conversion happens in his language, in the space where her credentials become her lie. And the institutional machinery grinds on as if this is a routine arrest in a parking garage and not the detention of the surgeon responsible for a patient who is actively bleeding out. 41 floors above them, on the level 8 surgical wing, Marcus Webb has already been moved from the trauma bay to the OR prep area. He is unconscious. An IV line is running, actually 2 lines now. Dual access for blood products that are running in faster than his body can lose them. The anesthesiologist is running through the pre-op checklist. The circulating nurse is checking the position of instruments. The surgical tech is scanning the room for anything that is not in place. And then the anesthesiologist speaks into the open radio channel, the one that broadcasts to any staff in the hospital who need to know that a trauma case is minutes from the operating room. The message comes through in the flat register of emergency protocol, but the urgency underneath is audible to anyone who knows how to listen. Patient's BP is 58/30 and dropping. Hemorrhagic shock confirmed. We need the attending now. ETA on Dr. Harmon? The message comes through the ER bay phone. Priya Anand, still in the level B 2E stairwell, has propped the phone against the door jamb so that the sound carries to the landing where she is standing. The phone is an old model, the speaker not particularly loud, but in the concrete stairwell, sound carries and echoes and becomes louder than it is. She can hear the surgical team. She can hear the ceiling tiles vibrating slightly with the sound of her patient, not her patient, but her colleague's patient, the surgeon's patient, the patient who is supposed to have a surgeon, deteriorating in real time. She can hear the clock. She can hear the fact that every minute that passes is a minute the patient is in shock and bleeding and waiting for a surgeon who is cuffed to a concrete pillar 340 feet away, on the other side of a sealed door, in a different part of the hospital that might as well be a different country. She has been recording for 6 minutes now. Her phone is held at waist height, the camera running, the angle pointing toward the support pillar where Harmon is restrained. The footage is steady. She is gripping the phone with both hands to keep it stable, to keep it level, to make sure that whatever happens is captured without shake or blur. The lighting is bad. A mix of garage fluorescence and the light that bounces off wet pavement and the light from car headlights that are still parked on this level. But the footage is real. It shows what happened. It shows the moment his hand came down on her wrist the first time. It shows her reaching for her badge. It shows his hand coming down again. It shows her asking for permission to identify herself. It shows all of it except for the 4 minutes and 11 seconds that Calloway's body cam will fail to record. Harmon does not shout. She does not thrash against the cuffs. She does not do anything that would give Calloway a reason to tighten the restraint or escalate the encounter further. Instead, she turns slightly toward him, and her voice, when it comes, is level and controlled and uses his name and his rank like she is speaking to someone she trusts. Like this is a conversation that can be reasoned through. "Officer Calloway," she says. Her voice carries across the garage. "What happens to the man on that table when I don't walk through that door?" Calloway does not answer. He does not turn toward her. He does not acknowledge the question. He is looking at his citation pad. He is writing something down. A charge. A violation code. The official documentation of the arrest. The question hangs in the garage air, unanswered, and the answer is being written in a chart on level 8, where a trauma team is preparing to open a patient's abdomen without the surgeon who is supposed to be leading the operation. The anesthesiologist will make the decision to start anesthesia without her. The first incision will be made without her. The clock will not wait. It is 11:53 and 8 seconds. The exact timestamp will matter later. At this moment, it is just the time when Calloway reaches up to his chest. His hand touches his body cam. There is a sound, a small click. The kind of sound an officer's hand makes when it finds the device mounted on his uniform and makes a decision about whether what is about to happen needs to be documented. The body cam stops recording. The timestamp freezes at 11 hours, 53 minutes, and 8 seconds p.m. The audio cuts. The video stops. The time of the gap begins at 11:53 and 8 seconds, and it will last exactly 4 minutes and 11 seconds, the identical duration of the gap on Crescent Avenue in 2021. And in those 4 minutes and 11 seconds, no record will exist of what happens in the Level B2 garage, except for the record that Priya Anand is creating. The gap is not an accident. Equipment does not malfunction in a way that is 4 minutes and 11 seconds long and then recover exactly as the moment of peak tension has passed. The gap is not a coincidence. The gap is a choice. It is the same choice that happened on Crescent Avenue 3 years ago, in another garage, in another situation where an officer decided that what he was about to do did not need documentation. The duration is identical. The decision is identical. The consequence then was nothing. No discipline, no notation, no institutional response. The consequence now is supposed to be identical. But in 2024, on Level B2 of Eastfield University Hospital, there is something that was not on Crescent Avenue in 2021. There is a witness who is recording. There is a nurse who made a decision to raise her phone to waist height and hold it steady and not look away. Anand is standing in the doorway of the stairwell. She can see Calloway and Harmon from her angle. She can see the pillar. She can see the part of the garage that the fixed camera on the wall is also recording. She can see that something has changed in Calloway's posture. Something has shifted in the way he is holding himself, and she is deciding whether to move, whether to step out of the stairwell and make herself visible, whether to escalate from witness to intervener. The question has not been answered. The decision has not been made. She is still recording. Her hands are steady. Her breath is steady. The phone is recording. Calloway's partner is in the garage. He is on the opposite side of the structure, near the level egress, but he has been monitoring the interaction. He has heard the radio traffic. He has heard the 10:15 call. He has seen his partner standing over a woman cuffed to a pillar. He has heard the question asked and not answered. He is walking now. He is crossing the garage. He is moving toward the stairwell, toward the place where Priya Anand is standing with her phone at waist height. And he has clocked the phone. He has seen the camera. He has understood what is happening. The camera is recording what his partner's camera is not recording. The camera is documenting the gap. The camera is catching what was meant to disappear. He crosses the distance. His pace is steady. He is not running. He is not urgent. He is approaching Anand with the kind of purpose that says he has already decided what he is going to ask her to do. Stop recording. Put the phone away. Do not document this. The implication is clear. He is moving toward her with the weight of his uniform and his badge and his authority, and he expects that weight to be enough. Anand sees him coming. She sees the badge on his chest. She sees the moment he registers that she is not going to lower her phone and hide it. She is not going to turn away. She is not going to stop recording. She is going to keep the camera steady. And she is making a decision that will change the trajectory of everything that comes after this night. She raises the phone to eye level. The decision is not passive. The decision is not accidental. The decision is not compliance with the natural order of a hospital hierarchy that would ask her to defer and wait and let the situation be handled by the people with authority. The decision is to assert that what is happening is worth being seen, and if someone wants her to stop seeing it, they will have to tell her to her face, and she will have to decide whether to obey. The circulating nurse in OR 3 cannot reach Dr. Adiz Harman. The line to the attending surgeon's cell phone rings and goes to voicemail. The surgical team is prepped. The patient is anesthetized. The clock is at 12:01 a.m., and the optimal window for intervention is closing, and there is no attending surgeon in the operating room. The circulating nurse makes a decision. She does not call security. She does not call administration through normal channels. She calls the person who runs the institution. She calls Victoria Cho, the Chief Executive Officer of Eastfield University Hospital. Victoria Cho is in her office on the Level 7 executive floor when the call comes through. She is 54 years old, Korean American, and she has run Eastfield for 11 years. She knows the hospital the way some people know their own houses, not through maps or organizational charts, but through the texture of how things move through space and time. She knows where the bottlenecks are. She knows where authority gets stuck. She knows the hospital's surgical capacity is not an abstract number on a budget spreadsheet, but a specific person, the trauma surgeon on call, the one who is supposed to be in OR 3 at this moment, and who is not answering her phone. The circulating nurse tells her that Dr. Harman went down to the garage at 11:47, and she has not come back up. The surgical team has waited as long as they can wait. The patient cannot wait any longer. Cho says one thing: "I'm coming." She does not call security ahead of her. She does not notify Callaway that she is on her way. She does not follow the protocol that would have a CEO escorted by hospital security to a confrontation with a police officer. She picks up a printed OR manifest, the document that lists the patient's name and the attending surgeon's name and the time of the operation and the patient's vital signs as of the last entry. And she picks up a hospital legal pad, and she starts recording on her phone while she is walking toward the elevator. The recording starts in the executive hallway. The timestamp is already being documented. She is already creating an official record of what she is about to find. The elevator arrives. She enters. The doors close. She does not wait nervously. She does not prepare a speech. She rides the elevator down, and the phone in her hand is recording, and she is thinking about the distance between level 7 and level B2, and she is thinking about the distance between an attending surgeon and an operating room. and she is thinking about the distance between her authority as the CEO of this institution and the authority of a police officer who works in the district that surrounds her institution. The elevator opens on level B2. The garage is the same as it has been for the past 16 minutes. Wet asphalt, fluorescent lights, the sound of rain on the concrete structure above. Officer Calloway is standing 15 feet from the support pillar. Doctor, Harmon is cuffed to the pillar. Priya Anand is in the stairwell, her phone held at eye level, recording. The fixed camera on the wall is recording. And now, Victoria Cho is entering the garage with a printed manifest and a phone already running, and the specific authority that comes from the fact that she knows this space better than anyone in it. She walks toward Calloway and Harmon. She does not hurry. She does not run. The manifest is in her hands, and she is reading from it as she walks, confirming the information, confirming what she is about to say. She reaches the area where Harmon is cuffed. She turns to face both Calloway and the fixed camera on the wall, the camera angle that is not the blind spot, the angle that has been recording the entire interaction. She knows this garage. She has walked this garage 1,000 times. She knows where the cameras are. She knows what they see and what they miss. She stands in the space that the camera sees, and she holds the OR manifest where the camera can see it, and she reads the patient's name aloud. Marcus Webb, she says. The name is on the printed manifest. The name is being read into an official record. The name is connecting the person on the operating table to the person cuffed to the pillar. There is silence. 4 seconds of silence. The kind of silence that happens when the world shifts and everyone in it understands that something has changed. Calloway's right hand moves toward his radio. His hand rises. His fingers reach toward the shoulder-mounted device, and then his hand stops. His hand drops. His eyes move from Cho to the fixed camera on the wall. His eyes find the camera angle that is not the blind spot. His eyes come back to Cho, and he understands that she knows what he knows. There is a permanent record being made. Cho does not speak to Calloway. She addresses her phone. She is recording. She speaks into the phone the way she would speak into a legal document. This is Victoria Cho, Chief Executive Officer, Eastfield University Hospital. The date is November 15th, 2024. The time is 12:03 a.m. The location is level B2 of the hospital parking structure. Officer Brett Calloway, badge number EPD 1147, has placed Dr. Adizi Harmon, attending trauma surgeon, under arrest while Dr. Harmon is scheduled to perform emergency surgery on patient Marcus Webb. Patient's blood pressure as of 12:01 a.m. is 58/30. The distance from this location to OR3 is 340 feet. She finishes. She holds the OR manifest open toward Calloway. The document is visible. The patient's name is visible. The attending surgeon's name is visible. The times are visible. Everything is visible. Calloway looks at the manifest. He understands what is happening. The institution is stepping between him and the person he has decided to arrest. The institution is documenting his decision. The institution is creating a record that will not disappear. He says, "I don't care who's waiting." Cho says nothing. She does not argue. She does not explain the patient's medical condition, or the surgical timeline, or the concept of a ruptured spleen, or the fact that every minute that passes is a minute the patient is in shock. She does not raise her voice. She does not move closer to Calloway. She simply stands where she is standing, in the space that the camera sees, with her phone recording, with the manifest visible, with the patient's name documented, with her authority as the CEO of this institution, creating an official record of the moment when a police officer stated that he did not care who was waiting on an operating table. Calloway reaches for his radio. He calls in a status update. He's requesting a transport unit. He is still making the arrest. He is still expecting to process the detention, to move Harmon from the pillar to a patrol car, to take her out of the hospital and away from the operating room and away from the patient who is on the table. Cho does not move. Priya Anand does not lower her phone. The fixed camera does not stop recording. The record continues. The transport unit receives the call. The transport unit receives the notification that there is an arrest waiting to be processed on level B2. The transport unit receives the information about a woman who is being detained in a hospital parking garage while a trauma patient is being prepped for emergency surgery without an attending surgeon. The transport unit, somewhere in the city, makes a decision. The transport unit declines to respond. The transport unit does not come to level B2. The transport unit does not pick up the person Calloway wants arrested. The call remains unanswered. The log on Calloway's radio shows a request that has been refused. The institutional machinery, at the level of transport, has decided not to move the arrest forward. Calloway stands beside an empty call log. His request is unanswered. His command, if he even stated it as a command, has been declined by the institution itself. Victoria Cho does not smile. She does not speak. She does not declare victory. She simply stands where she is standing, with her phone recording, while the garage fills with the sound of rain on concrete and the sound of her documentation of the moment when an officer's authority ran into the limits of what an institution would allow him to do. Doctor, Harmon is still cuffed to the pillar. The patient on level 8 is still waiting. The optimal window is still closing. Nothing has been solved. But something has shifted. The institution has looked at the situation and has decided to record it rather than ignore it. The CEO has arrived and has documented the fact that a trauma surgeon is in a parking garage while her patient is on an operating table. The fixed camera has captured the whole thing. Priya Anand's phone has captured it. Victoria Cho's phone has captured it. The record is not going to disappear. The record is not going to be filed away with a notation about officer exercising appropriate judgment under ambiguous circumstances. Calloway looks at Harmon. He looks at Cho. He looks at the phone in her hand. He looks at the OR manifest. He understands, finally, what he has done. Not because he understands the severity of detaining a surgeon during a medical emergency, but because he understands that he has done it in front of witnesses, in front of cameras, in front of the CEO of the hospital, in front of an institution that has decided to watch and record and document. The institutional silence that protected him before, the silence that closed every complaint without consequence, is no longer in place. The silence has been broken by someone with authority to speak, and the words being spoken are being recorded, and the record is official. Special Agent Renata Okafor works out of the FBI's Detroit field office, Civil Rights Division. She is 44 years old, Igbo American, and she has spent 16 years building cases that survive appellate challenge. She does not build cases on outrage. She builds them on documentary evidence, on the kind of specificity that a federal prosecutor can argue in front of a jury without editorializing. On November 25th, 2024, 11 days after the incident in the Level B2 garage, Okafor sits at her desk and opens a split-screen display on her computer. On the left side of the screen is body cam footage from a stop on Crescent Avenue in Eastfield, dated March 14th, 2021. On the right side is body cam footage from Level B2 of Eastfield University Hospital, dated November 14th, 2024. The footage on the left shows a black male delivery driver standing on a curb. The footage on the right is blank. Both feeds stop at the same duration, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Both are logged in the incident reports as equipment malfunction. Okafor does not move. She stares at the timestamps. She stares at the durations. She stares at the fact that the gap on Crescent Avenue and the gap on level B2 are identical to the second and triggered at the moment of maximum confrontational exposure in both cases. She stares at the blank screen on the right, and she understands what she is looking at. She reaches for her keyboard and she types one word: practice. The word sits on her desk notepad while she moves to the next phase of evidence assembly. Priya Anand's recording, 6 minutes and 44 seconds of uninterrupted footage from the level B2 stairwell, arrives in her case file on November 22nd. The video is clear enough for federal evidentiary standards. It shows Dr. Harmon against the pillar. It shows Officer Calloway approaching her. It shows the 2 moments his hand comes down on her wrist. It shows her asking for permission to identify herself. It shows the clarity of what happened in real time, with audio, with timestamp, with spatial reference. The video does not have a gap. The video does not have a blank section. The video shows everything. The fixed camera footage from level B2 arrives on November 23rd. Eastfield Hospital's security department hands over the file without resistance. The footage is from a different angle, higher, wider, a different perspective of the same space. But the fixed camera also captures what Calloway's body cam does not. It captures Victoria Cho arriving. It captures her standing in the space that is not a blind spot. It captures her reading into her phone. It captures Calloway's right hand moving toward his radio at 11 hours 53 minutes and 8 seconds p.m. and then stopping and dropping. It captures the moment when institutional authority intersects with police authority and institutional authority does not blink. The fixed camera has no gaps. The fixed camera recorded continuously. The OR manifest arrives on November 24th, printed on hospital letterhead, time-stamped at 11:47 p.m., the time of the on-call page. The document lists Marcus Webb's name. The document lists the attending surgeon as Dr. Adazi Harmon. The document is an institutional record, created in real time, documenting the fact that a trauma patient was admitted and a specific surgeon was called. The document is not ambiguous. It is not subject to interpretation. It is a piece of paper that was printed while Dr. Harmon was still in the parking garage, cuffed to a pillar, with her phone not answering, with her badge not displayed, with her third verbal identification having just been made to an officer who was about to turn off his body cam. The phone metadata arrives on November 25th. Okafor's team has subpoenaed the records from Officer Calloway's body cam device. The metadata shows the exact moment the camera stopped recording, 11 hours 53 minutes and 8 seconds p.m. The metadata shows the exact moment it resumed, 12 hours 8 minutes and 19 seconds a.m. The metadata shows the duration of the gap, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The metadata also shows something else. The metadata shows the exact moment the camera turned off. The timestamp matches the timestamp of Harmon's third verbal identification, the third time she said her name and her title and her affiliation with the hospital. The gap did not begin at a moment of ambiguity. The gap began 4 seconds after she said, "I'm Dr. Adazi Harmon, attending trauma surgeon at Eastfield University Hospital." The gap began exactly when documentation would have been most crucial. Okafor builds the case under 18 U.S.A. CISA, Section 242. The statute makes it a federal crime for a person acting under color of law to deprive another person of their constitutional rights. The right at issue is the right to be free from unreasonable seizure. The seizure is the handcuffing. The deprivation is the detention of a physician on hospital grounds while a patient requires emergency surgery. The color of law is the badge. The evidence is the video, the manifest, the metadata, the testimony of witnesses, the pattern of prior conduct, the identical gaps 3 years apart, the word practice that sits on Okafor's notepad while she builds the file. She does not need to prove that Calloway intended to violate Harmon's rights. Under Section 242, she needs to prove that he acted with deliberate indifference to a substantial risk of harm. She needs to prove that he knew, or should have known, that his actions would deprive her of a constitutional right. The evidence assembles itself. The body cam gap 3 years earlier shows he knew how to delete footage. The identical gap in 2024 shows he believed he could do it again. The 4-second delay shows precision, not panic, not accident, but a decision made at a specific moment. The manifest shows institutional knowledge of who was on the operating table and who was not there. The fixed camera shows institutional knowledge of what was happening. The fact that Calloway still made the arrest, knowing all of this, knowing that the CEO had arrived, knowing that he was on camera, knowing that the patient's name was being documented, the fact that he still said, "I don't care who's waiting," shows the deliberateness. On November 26th, the Civil Rights Division opens a formal federal investigation. Renata Okafor is assigned as lead agent. The case is titled United States v. Officer Brett Calloway, case number 2024, CV 89742, under 18 U.S.C. Section 2242, deprivation of rights under color of law. The case is also opened under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, the civil rights statute that allows individuals to sue for damages when their constitutional rights are violated by state actors. The Department of Justice sends a letter to Eastfield Police Department formally notifying them of the investigation. The letter is copied to the City of Eastfield Legal Department. The letter is copied to the union representing Eastfield officers. The letter informs them that any destruction of evidence, any intimidation of witnesses, any retaliation against complainants will result in additional federal charges. Okafor does not rest on the video evidence. She does not rest on the manifest or the metadata. She does what she always does. She assembles the record so tightly that there is no room for alternative interpretation. She interviews Priya Anand. Anand walks through the decision to raise the phone to eye level, the decision to keep recording, the decision to stand in the stairwell and bear witness. Okafor does not ask her to interpret what she saw. She asks her to describe what she saw. What did you hear on the radio? At what time did you first observe Dr. Harmon restrained to the pillar? How many times did you hear Officer Calloway's hand make contact with Dr. Harmon's wrist? Anand answers with precision. The answers match the video footage. Okafor interviews the surgical team. She interviews the anesthesiologist, the circulating nurse, the surgical tech, the resident who was on the ER team when Marcus Webb arrived. She asks them about Marcus Webb's vital signs, about the timeline of deterioration, about the decision to call Victoria Cho. None of them knew that Calloway had placed Dr. Harmon under arrest. None of them knew that the attending surgeon was in the parking garage. They knew that the surgeon had not answered her phone. They knew that the patient was in hemorrhagic shock. They knew that every minute that passed was a minute the patient was bleeding out. The anesthesiologist testifies that he made the decision to begin anesthesia without the attending surgeon present. He had never made that decision before. He made it because he believed the alternative was to let the patient die while waiting. On November 29th, 4 days after the formal investigation opened, Okafor places a call to Victoria Cho. She does not call through the hospital's legal department. She calls Cho directly. She asks Cho to confirm one detail from the night of the incident. On level B2, when you read the officer's badge number into your phone recorder, what was the number? Cho does not pause to check her notes. Cho does not ask to verify the information. Cho says, EPD 1147. The number comes from memory. The number is precise. The number is the same number that is documented in the hospital's incident report, the same number that appears on the officer's uniform. The same number that Okafor has already cross-referenced in the Eastfield Police Department's personnel database. The number is not ambiguous. The answer is not equivocal. Okafor writes it down. EPD 1147. She adds it to the timeline. She adds the fact that the CEO of the hospital remembered the badge number without hesitation, without consulting notes, which means the number was seared into her memory by the specificity of the moment when she stood in a parking garage and read it into a phone recorder while a trauma surgeon was cuffed to a pillar and a patient was waiting on an operating table. The case file is now 3 inches thick. The evidence is documentary. The evidence is video. The evidence is testimony. The evidence is metadata. The evidence is the pattern of prior conduct. The identical gap, the word practice that Okafor wrote while looking at 2 split-screen displays and understanding that what she was seeing was not a malfunction, but a method. The federal administrative hearing takes place in a conference room on the 14th floor of the federal building in downtown Detroit. There is a long table. There are chairs. There is a large display screen mounted on the wall. Officer Brett Calloway sits at one end of the table with his union-appointed attorney, a man in his 60s who has spent 30 years defending police officers against federal civil rights charges. Special Agent Renata Okafor sits across from them with 2 prosecutors from the Department of Justice and a hearing officer appointed by the Civil Rights Division. The hearing officer is a federal administrative judge named Catherine Walsh. She has presided over 18 Section 242 cases. She has recommended termination in 15 of them. Calloway's attorney opens with a technical defense, the body cam gap. The attorney argues, was a device malfunction, equipment fails, cameras malfunction. The gap in the footage does not prove anything except that the camera stopped recording. There is no evidence of intentional deletion. There is no evidence of deliberate conduct. The gap is unfortunate, but it is not probative of anything except that technology is imperfect. The attorney does not know that he has just made a tactical error by claiming the gap was a technical malfunction outside of Calloway's control, by arguing that Calloway cannot be held responsible for equipment failure. The attorney has waived what is known as Garrity protections. Garrity protections prevent an officer's compelled statements from being used against them in criminal proceedings. But those protections only apply if the officer is testifying truthfully. If the officer's defense contradicts the evidence, if the officer's attorney makes statements that are inconsistent with the documented record, then the protections dissolve. Calloway's attorney has just dissolved them. Okafor stands. She approaches the display screen. She is holding a flash drive with the evidence files. She connects it to the screen. The screen splits in 2. On the left side appears dashcam footage from Crescent Avenue, dated March 14, 2021. On the right side appears dashcam footage from Level B2, dated November 14, 2024. Both clips show a black person being detained by Officer Calloway. Both clips show the encounter in its entirety. Both clips show what the body cams do not. Okafor speaks to the hearing officer. Your Honor, I am presenting a comparative analysis of 2 incidents involving Officer Calloway. In both cases, the body cam recording contains a gap. In the 2021 incident, the gap is 4 minutes and 11 seconds. In the 2024 incident, the gap is also 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The probability of 2 unrelated equipment malfunctions producing identical durations at maximum confrontational exposure is effectively 0. She overlays a timeline graphic on the screen. The timeline shows the body cam gap in the 2021 case. Below it, a second timeline shows the body cam gap in the 2024 case. The gaps are superimposed. They align perfectly. They are identical in duration. They are identical in trigger point. Both begin at the moment of maximum confrontational exposure. Both begin immediately after the detained person makes a verbal assertion of identity or rights. Calloway is watching the screen. His attorney is watching the screen. The hearing officer is watching the screen. The two prosecutors are watching the screen. No one is watching Calloway's face except Okafor, who has been trained to watch faces at the moment when evidence lands. She sees understanding arrive. She sees the moment when Calloway realizes that the gap is not a malfunction. The gap is a pattern. The gap is practice. Okafor continues. She clicks to the next exhibit. Exhibit 14 appears on the screen. It is a frozen frame from Calloway's own body cam footage, captured at 11:49 p.m. on November 14, 2024, 4 minutes before the gap begins. The frame shows Dr. Harmon from the waist up. She is against the pillar. Her coat is visible. On the left side of her coat, in the breast pocket, there are two objects visible through the fabric. They are sterile packaged surgical gloves. They are the kind of gloves that a trauma surgeon carries in her pocket before she goes into the operating room. They are not ammunition. They are not a weapon. They are surgical gloves. Okafor addresses Calloway directly. She does not raise her voice. She speaks in the same measured register she has used throughout the hearing. Officer Calloway, at the time you placed Dr. Harmon under arrest, you had in your possession body cam footage showing her breast pocket clearly displaying sterile surgical gloves. Doctor, Harmon is an attending trauma surgeon. Those gloves were prepared for her use in the operating room. She was in a hospital parking structure. The operating room she was scheduled to enter was 340 feet away. What? Officer Calloway, did you believe this woman was doing in that parking garage? Calloway does not answer. He looks at his attorney. His attorney does not speak. The hearing officer waits. The prosecutors wait. The room fills with the absence of an answer. 4 seconds pass. 5 seconds. 6 seconds. There is no answer that Calloway can give. If he says he believed she was a criminal, he is claiming he believed a woman carrying surgical gloves, dressed in hospital scrubs, in a hospital parking structure, was committing a crime. If he says he believed she was trespassing, he is claiming he believed an employee of the hospital was trespassing in the hospital. If he says he was following protocol, he is claiming that protocol requires arresting employees during emergencies. There is no answer that makes sense. There is only silence. Catherine Walsh. The hearing officer sets down her pen. She has taken notes throughout the hearing. She has listened to the testimony. She has reviewed the exhibits. She has examined the evidence. She speaks in a clear, declarative voice. The evidence establishes that Officer Calloway violated the constitutional rights of Dr. Adesi Harmon by detaining her without lawful cause under color of law, in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 242. And this office recommends his immediate termination from the Eastfield Police Department and criminal referral to the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan for federal prosecution. The sentence is one sentence. The consequence is total. Calloway's career is over. His pension is under review. His name will be added to the state's police decertification registry. He will not work in law enforcement again in Michigan. He will not work in law enforcement anywhere a background check reaches. The hearing is over. Calloway's union attorney stands. Your Honor, I request a recess so that we may discuss our options and prepare an appeal. Catherine Walsh does not pause. Request denied. This hearing is concluded. In a hospital corridor on level 7, Dr. Adesi Harmon sits on a bench outside the surgical lounge and reads the hearing summary on her phone. The text is small. The document is dense with legal language. But the conclusion is clear. The hearing officer has recommended termination. The criminal referral has been forwarded. The ruling is documented. She reads it once. She reads it again. She says nothing. She simply sits on the bench in the fluorescent light of the hospital corridor, and she breathes, and she does not move. And the phone in her hand shows her the word she has been waiting to read: terminated. December 15th, 2024. The Department of Justice sends a letter to Eastfield Police Department. The letter is official. The letter mandates immediate implementation of new body cam protocols, including automatic upload of all footage to a secure federal server within 2 hours of any incident involving use of force or detention. The letter mandates supervised re-review of all complaints filed against Officer Brett Calloway during his tenure at Eastfield PD. The letter mandates that any officer with a prior complaint history be subject to enhanced oversight before future deployments to sensitive areas. The letter is copied to the City Council. The letter is copied to the Mayor's office. The letter makes clear that future federal funding for police operations is contingent on compliance. January 8th, 2025. The City of Eastfield offers a settlement to Dr. Adazi Harmon. The amount is $800,000. The offer includes a non-disclosure agreement. Dr. Harmon declines. She instructs her attorney to reject the offer. She does not want the offer. She does not want the settlement hidden behind a non-disclosure agreement. She wants the settlement public. She wants the amount documented. She wants the record to be clear. This is what it costs when an institution fails to protect one of its own. February 22nd, 2025. The city offers a second settlement. The amount is $1.5 million. The offer again includes a non-disclosure agreement. Dr. Harmon declines again. Her attorney informs the city that there will be no settlement unless the terms are public, and the amount is set at a level that reflects the severity of the violation and the duration of the institutional failure. The 7 prior complaints against Calloway that were closed without action. The years of conduct that was documented and ignored. April 10th, 2025. The city offers a third settlement. The amount is $2.3 million. There is no non-disclosure agreement. The settlement is public. The payment is documented. The City Council approves the settlement at a public meeting. The vote is 9-2. The settlement is entered into the public record of Eastfield, Michigan. Officer Brett Calloway's permanent termination is confirmed on April 15th, 2025. His post-certification, the peace officer standards and training credential that allows him to work in law enforcement, is revoked by the state. His name is added to the state's decertification registry. Any police department in Michigan that attempts to hire him will see his name on the registry and will be required to disclose his decertification history. He will not work in law enforcement in Michigan. The odds that he will work in law enforcement anywhere a background check reaches are minimal. On May 3rd, 2025, Special Agent Renata Okafor testifies before the Eastfield City Council's Public Safety Oversight Committee. She speaks for 7 minutes. She walks through the evidence, the identical body cam gaps, the pattern of prior complaints, the documentary record that showed institutional knowledge and institutional silence. She describes the OR manifest, the patient's vital signs, the distance from the parking garage to the operating room. She describes the framed letter from Marcus Webb's family, written 6 weeks after his discharge, thanking Dr. Harmon for saving his life. She describes what accountability looks like when an institution is willing to move on it. She does not editorialize. She does not declare victory. She simply presents the facts. The City Council listens. No council member speaks against the settlement. No council member questions the amount. The record is closed. 11 months have passed since the night in the parking garage. 11 months of federal investigation, administrative hearing, settlement negotiation, institutional reform, 11 months of doctor, a Daisy Harmon returning to work at Eastfield University Hospital while the case proceeded around her. 11 months of her showing up, of her doing her job, of her being the surgeon she was trained to be. On a Tuesday night in May, at 11:52 p.m., Dr. Harmon pushes through the double doors that lead to OR3. An on-call page is lit in her coat pocket, a new patient, a new emergency, a new person who needs her skills. The scrub room is small, fluorescent lit, the kind of space that smells like soap and antiseptic. On the wall behind the sink, visible through the narrow window of the supply cabinet, is a framed letter. The letter is from the family of Marcus Webb. The letter was written 6 weeks after his discharge, after the surgery that Dr. Harmon performed, after he left the hospital alive. The letter thanks her. The letter tells her that Marcus returned to his job. The letter tells her that his children saw him on the day he was discharged. The letter tells her that what she did mattered. She does not read the letter. She has read it before. She knows what it says. She does not need to read it again to know what it means. She simply sees it there, visible, present, a constant reminder of why she does what she does. The OR door closes behind her. The surgical team is waiting. The patient is prepped. The clock on the wall above the sink reads 11:53 p.m. She reaches for the soap. The water runs. Her hands go under the water. The water is warm. The soap is clinical and precise. She scrubs. Her fingers move through the motions she has performed thousands of times. Hands ready, head steady. The words her father taught her. The discipline he instilled. The composure that is not about being unaffected, but about being affected and choosing not to show it while you are doing what needs to be done. The hands under the water are the hands of a trauma surgeon. The hands under the water belong to a woman who has spent 9 years at Eastfield, who has been trained at Johns Hopkins, who has embedded with a forward surgical team in Afghanistan, who has been cuffed to a parking garage pillar while a patient bled on an operating table, and who returned to work anyway. The hands under the water are steady. The clock reads 11:53. The patient is waiting.